Classic WoW was a different time, and there was just so much more opportunities to troll people in the game that just don't exist today. Vanilla WoW was, for the most part, the Wild West of World of Warcraft. There was just so much stuff you could do in the game to inconvenience and annoy other players. Blizzard really did give you a lot of freedom when it came to that game. In today's version of World of Warcraft, it seems like everything has just been made so that you have a safety net, and another player from the opposing faction really can't bother you that much. Even things like rolling on items doesn't exist anymore, so it's pretty much impossible to ninja loot these days. But the ways other players could annoy you in Classic WoW was just absolutely immense. So in this list, I will be going over 10 of the biggest trolls in World of Warcraft. So number 1 has to be the NPC killers. Now these guys are the biggest time wasters you can imagine. You know, let's say you just want to use the auction house and be done with it. Well, unfortunate news for you is that all the auction house NPCs has been killed by the opposing faction. So you can no longer use the auction house for a good 10 minutes. Another common way people trolled you in World of Warcraft Classic was by killing the flight masters. Now if a flight master dies, you pretty much have to just wait there for 10 minutes and there is nothing you can do. Fortunately though, the flight masters are quite tough to kill. They are level 55 elites and they do spawn some NPCs to protect them. But if a group of the opposing faction really wants to kill a flight NPC, they can. Probably the most inconvenient place to kill a flight NPC is in Stranglethorn Vale. Stranglethorn Vale is a really big choke point for a lot of Horde players. So if you're Alliance and you really want to annoy the Horde, all you have to do is just kill the Flight Master in Stranglethorn Vale at the Gromgol base camp, and you will really annoy WoW players. Number 2 is the Priest Mind Control. Now this is pretty unique, but Mind Control basically lets you control an opposing faction member. So you can basically mind control another player and you can basically get them to jump off ledges, to drown themselves, to jump in lava, to jump off a boat. You know, your imagination is the limit. Priests can really be annoying in Blackrock Mountain. Now, it's very common for priests of an opposing faction to mind control you and basically force you to jump off a ledge and kill yourself in the lava, which will incur equipment damage that will cost you money. Or another one is just simply mind controlling you and then making you jump off a cliff or a mountain. Those are also common ways to get people to lose their money. Another one is when you're on a boat or a zeppelin, you basically mind control the other guy and you basically just jump off at sea, and there are no sea mounts in Classic WoW. So if you get mind controlled and you have to jump off at sea, you're going to lose a lot of time. It's going to take you about 10 minutes to get back to where you were. Number 3 is that guy doing an experimental build. Now in Classic WoW there are pretty rigid boundaries as to what a class can and can't do. Certain specs in the game that Blizzard created just simply don't work at a viable level. You know, some of these things that come to mind are Feral DPS, Retribution Paladin, and some even more unconventional ones like a Shaman Tank. But basically what it means is that these guys are going to be using a spec that just isn't that good. And when you're in a dungeon group and you just want to get to the end as fast as possible, you don't want to be dealing with some experimental build that probably does half the DPS other classes do, or simply just can't heal or tank as good as a warrior can. You know, I'm all for experimental builds and trying out new things, but if you're going to do that, I think you probably should be doing that with your friends and in an environment where you're not trying to get to the end as fast as possible like a pickup group is. Like, pickup groups are just guys that are trying to get to the end of the dungeon and they probably don't want to be dealing with some guy using some GIMP spec for the hell of it. Number 4 is the gankers in Stranglethorn Vale, and to be honest, the entirety of Stranglethorn Vale. Stranglethorn Vale is just a packed zone. There are so many Horde and Alliance players in this zone of all types of levels that it is basically a constant war zone of people ganking each other over and over. I think it is literally impossible to play on a Classic WoW PvP server and not get killed in Stranglethorn Vale at one point. You are basically forced to go into Stranglethorn Vale at level 30, and it is probably the best leveling zone you can choose for both factions. The zone itself is pretty small but contains so many players. The quests in the zone go from level 30 up to level 50. And in addition, there was a bunch of reasons why level 60 players would go in Stranglethorn Vale. So there is just tons of Alliance and Horde players packed into this little zone, and it is just a war zone. I don't know what Blizzard was thinking when they created Stranglethorn Vale. I kind of hate it, but I kind of love it at the same time. Stranglethorn Vale is just one of those things that embodies the spirit of Classic WoW. You're going to try and go here and level up and do the quests, but it's probably going to take twice as long as you think it should because you'll constantly be fighting other players. Booty Bay is no better. Like in Booty Bay, like if you attack an opposing faction member, you do get attacked by the NPCs at Booty Bay, but that doesn't stop people from doing it. I mean, I've been ganked in Booty Bay countless times. So, I mean, there is no safe part of Stranglethorn Vale. You're constantly on edge. Number 5 is Hunters looting. Now, Hunters can basically use pretty much any weapon in the game, any armor in the game, and they need pretty much every single stat you can imagine. You got a piece of gear that has plus stamina, a hunter wants that. You got a piece of gear that has plus agility, a hunter wants that. You got a piece of gear that has plus intellect, a hunter wants that. In the leveling period of a hunter, they pretty much will roll on any piece of gear. So if you invite a hunter to your group in a leveling dungeon, you'll pretty much see this hunter roll on every single piece of loot that drops. Hunters are notorious for being guys that roll on every single piece of gear that drops. And it's not their fault, it's just they need every single stat in the game. Number 6 are the female beggars in Classic WoW. Now this is mostly Night Elf females, but I mean, at the time there wasn't really Blood Elf, so this didn't really happen on the Horde side, but on the Alliance side, there were a lot of these beggars in Stormwind City. You will find them, and they'll be basically asking for a gold for nothing. And they will do this under the guise that they are a female. They will tell you that they are a female, just so that they can get some thirsty guy to give them 1 gold. These players really annoy me. If you want to make some gold, just work for it. I mean, don't beg or ask other people to give you money, especially when you're lying about being a female. Number 7 is being polymorphed or sapped. Now, polymorph is a spell in the game that basically stops you playing the game for 40 seconds. So if a mage casts this on you, I mean, you can basically just leave your keyboard for 40 seconds. And this can be casted on you over and over. There are some diminishing effects to casting polymorph multiple times, but, you know, you get polymorph for a minute, and you come out of the polymorph and you're no longer a sheep, and that mage will cast it on you again, over and over, just wasting your time for no reason. Not even killing you, not even letting you die and go back to your corpse. The same can be said for sap. Sap is just really, really strong in this game, and it can last for up to a minute pretty much. If a rogue just wants to mess with you, he will sap you over and over again, and there's nothing you can do. It's almost worse than being ganked, because when you're ganked, it's like, oh yeah, now I just need to fight them back, and I'll return to my corpse, and I will try to kill them next time I see them. But when you get polymorphed or sapped, there's nothing you can do. It's just literally wasting your time, and it is something any rogue or mage can do to you. Number 8 are the escort quests. And this is due to Blizzard making escort quests really, really annoying. If you've taken any escort quest in Classic WoW, you will immediately regret it. The escort that you are escorting just walks at a snail's pace, and if they see any mob within a mile of their radius, they will charge them and attack them, and you'll have to protect them and join in on the fight. It is absolutely painful to do any escort quest in Classic WoW. It just takes so long. And this is bad enough in your own faction's territory where you can't be ganked. But in contested territory, you can be ganked by the opposing faction, and if you die or the escort dies, you have to go back. You have to start that quest from the beginning. So that means that you could be in Ongoro Crater and you could be escorting Ringo, and if some guy chooses to kill you, you have to start all over again. Even if you're 8 minutes into the escort quest, if an opposing faction member kills you while you're on that escort quest, you have to go back. I highly recommend not doing escort quests when Classic WoW comes out, especially if it is in contested territory. It's just not worth the risk of getting ganked. Number 9 is the item Thunderstrike. Now Blizzard are trolling us once again with this item that drops from Molten Core, and this is the worst weapon in the game, I think. I mean, obviously there are items in the game that have a lower DPS than this, but this polearm is absolutely a joke. Now, there are some weird items in Classic WoW. There are some items that are just not that good, but the Thunderstrike / Shadow Strike is just the worst weapon in the game relative to its level and how to get it. First of all, why would we want a level 58 epic from Molten Core? It is a level 60 raid. Why is a level 58 item dropping here? And even for a level 58 item, it really isn't that good. There are some level 50-ish items in the game that are pretty good in Classic WoW, and you will use them in future raid content. But this is not one of them. The attack speed on this weapon is way too fast, and the DPS is absolutely abysmal. There is literally no reason why anyone would need this item. In fact, this item, called Thunderstrike, has been given the nickname Vendor Strike, because that is all people use it for. Number 10 is rogues in general. Rogues are just really annoying to deal with in Classic WoW. Now, this may not be the case when Classic WoW gets re-released today, but back in 2006, rogues had a reputation of being the worst players in the game. If there was a guy that will ninja loot your item, it will be a rogue. You can see clips of ninja looters in old school versions of World of Warcraft, and the guys that are ninja looting are almost always a rogue. So this should tell you the mentality of people that choose to roll a rogue in Classic WoW. But it's more than that. The rogues are the guys that are going to be ganking you over and over as a level 20 when they are a level 60 in epic items. These are the guys that love to gank you. These are the guys that will sap you just for the fun of it, just so they can waste your time. Rogues are the most annoying players to deal with, and I say this with no bias as I rolled a rogue in Classic WoW. So I have no bias in saying that. Rogues were the worst players in the game. They were also really overpopulated, like some servers in Classic WoW had like a 50% rogue population, so it was really hard to get a group playing a rogue since so many people did it. There's just something really appealing about an assassin class when you are a little kid that so many of us just picked it when we were young. Well guys, these were 10 of the biggest trolls in World of Warcraft Classic. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more. This is vaulty, signing out.